here on Flow FM. It's always good to catch up with Thomas Elder Markets, Matt Dalgleish. How are you, Matt?
Oh, g'day, Ricky. Thanks for having me.
We catch up with you about all things livestock, but something we don't often talk about is chicken. Now, you've got a story up on thomaseldermarkets.com.au. I just thought I'd start on this one. You're saying that the average American eats 50 kilos of chicken meat per annum. I've worked out that's about 20 chickens a year, and Aussies aren't that far behind.
No, that's right. I mean, when you look at the numbers across quite a few countries, chicken meat is the most popular meat, in the swagger countries in the OECD. And so, we've got a chart up there that shows about 15 or so countries. And I reckon about 12 of the 15 have got chicken meat as the number one consumed meat out of those three of chicken, pork, beef and lamb.
And when you look at on the sheep front, I reckon on a carcass weight basis, the average Aussie and American indeed eats probably a whole sheep across the course of a year.
Yeah, that's right. But look, in Australia, the actual consumption of lamb meat has been coming off over the last few decades. We used to eat about 12 kilos per person per year, and these days we eat about 6 kilos per person per year. But it's still one of the higher ones on a per person capacity. Australia is one of the higher consumers of sheep meat.
And I dare say we used to eat a lot more types of sheep meat or portions of the sheep than the cuts we get today.
Absolutely. You think about it, I'm old enough to remember going into the pub and ordering a lamb's fry and bacon as a pretty regular pub meal. You hardly see them those days.
Well, Australians, at least when they're out at the sale yards, they seem to be buying, maybe it's more so the processors are buying plenty of lamb. We seem to be back after the doldrums we dropped into sometime around late July.
Yeah, that's right. We have rebounded, and a lot of the pressure on pricing. Then one of it, I think we spoke about last time, Ricky, was a bit of FMD concern and maybe an overreaction. But the other thing was that the rush at the processors with trade lambs coming in, it just meant a bit of a backlog. So the prices eased because of that backlog. But if you look at the national slaughter figures for lamb just this week gone, we've had the second highest weekly slaughter rate. So the processors obviously back up and firing and clearing that backlog, and we've seen that the lamb price rise accordingly as well. So, in the eastern states, it's back up at around 7.45 cents a kilo carcass weight, which is not too bad.
And then looking at the cattle front, we had this sort of stampede that started in June when the foot and mouth disease concerns were really getting strong. I know there were some processor issues as well. We talked about this previously, and that stampede went from about $11.27 price down to about $887, but now we've turned around and we're going back the other way.
That's right. It's been, I think, pretty much on the time we were chatting, it was near the lows a fortnight or so ago, and we've recovered significantly since then. If you look over the last 4 weeks, we're up at about 70 cents or so, and we're above $10 again. So $10.15 was the price as of yesterday for the Eastern Young Cattle Indicator.
So it does seem that amongst the projections that are coming from the Bureau of Meteorology earlier this week that La Nina's are going to kick on for a little bit longer, that there's more optimism in the market perhaps as well, and maybe during a La Nina cycle this is maybe a new level around at 1,000 cents.
And we're not that far away from spring as well, don't forget. So there's a lot of moisture around, certainly in the southeast and the eastern seaboard. That's going to translate once we start to get the warm weather into pretty good grass growth. One thing producers want to see is animals eating their grass if they got it. So, that's probably going to underpin some pricing as we kind of head towards that springtime.
And are we seeing any tailwinds or headwinds on the export front? You're always keeping an eye on our export markets?
Look, generally speaking, they've been okay. We've had, for the beef space, we've had a little bit of a reduction in volumes to the US most of this year, but that's partially because they're going through a drought, so they're slaughtering a lot of cattle and their prices are cheap compared to ours. But other nations like South Korea is doing well. Japan's a bit up and down, but they're still relatively okay considering. And China's chugging along, so beef's kind of going sideways, but still holding okay. And in the sheep meat space, there's still a lot of demand there from quite a few participants or people that take our sheep meat. So that's a pretty good picture generally. The US is very strong again this year, so that's really helping to support those export prices.
Yeah, not surprisingly on that graph at thomaseldermarkets.com.au, we see South Korea. They love their pork still a lot more than they do the poultry and more so the beef. So we've still got some work to do to climb in the estimation of South Koreans is the preferred meat.
That's true. I think it's China and South Korea are the two countries that favour pork over chicken, but pretty much all the rest of the countries prefer chicken as the top meat.
Well, that's going to make me hungry for tonight's dinner. Thanks, Matt, for chatting with us today, and we'll catch you soon.
No worries, Ricky. Thanks.